It's still morning, so good morning. I'm happy to be here today. I was telling Jason a bit whenever we walked in. I've been in business almost 10 years. I'm the founder of White Car. We're a brand consultancy. We really work on brand development, brand promotion, and brand management. But over 10 years, we've done a lot of these different types of talks, and we've spoken in the past about how I can prepare a bunch of slides and stand in front of you and just talk at you, but everyone has so many unique challenges and questions whenever it comes to their business and marketing and social media specifically. So I have some bullet points. I have some different things to kind of spark some conversation, but we really want to just talk today. So don't be afraid to raise your hand, ask questions. How can I do this? What have you seen happen with that? To give you a bit of a background, we manage about 15 to 20 different brands and their different social channels. So on any given day, we're managing anywhere from 30 to 40 different social media profiles. So you can imagine we have seen the customer complaints that aren't pretty from the public. We've got the raving reviews. We've utilized different technology platforms to make stuff successful. So we've seen different things. I'll go ahead and pass these out. As Tyler said, or if y'all don't mind just passing them down, I'll split these up. With this being a Kickstarter, a lot of times we have someone who may be starting their business, who isn't quite sure of where to get started on social media. We may have someone who's been in business for 15 years and they've seen everything. But today's going to really focus on how do you really get started on social media. And so for that, I think the most important thing that we have to do is to really understand your audience. And a lot of times everyone thinks I have to be on every single platform, and that's just not the case. People may have comments about I have to put something on social media every single day. And I always say quality is better than quantity. So when you're looking at getting started on social media, or you're kind of there and really want to know where to go, I'm sorry? Oh, I thought you said something. What is your target audience? And who are you trying to go after? Is it women specifically, men specifically? Is it a certain age group? Is it a certain interest? So let's look at the biggest out there. I was looking at some data to understand, and Facebook is the biggest one up there. But Facebook, we're seeing a lot of your younger generations not utilizing Facebook as much. But if you want to target a younger generation, you're going to be on Snapchat and TikTok. In a professional world, most generations are on LinkedIn, and we're seeing that platform trend up a lot. Especially during COVID, we saw those numbers start to go up a lot, and people really engaging and being active. I used to have maybe one notification on LinkedIn a week. Now I'll have 10 to 15 a day of just activity and things that are happening and things that are going on. So that's kind of why we want to talk about picking your social channel. So I'm in a B2B market. My social channels are Facebook and LinkedIn. We have an Instagram just for the sake of it. But I'll be completely transparent. Do not judge my knowledge of social media on the performance of my social profiles, because ours have not been updated in 2 years. And it's been the simple reason that we've been busy. And word of mouth marketing has worked very well for us. We'll get 2 to 3 referrals a week where we're vetting clients about what their needs are. So we're somewhat afraid that if we push too much work out there on social media, that we're going to get more work coming in than we can handle at the current moment. So our profiles aren't updated. But whenever you want to look at how I would update things, on LinkedIn, 1 post a week is where I'm going to go. That business network, that B2B. On Facebook, we're going to really look at knowing that there is an older market that is on Facebook and that we can target them. My wife has a women's clothing boutique. And so whenever we work with her, we use a lot of Instagram. We use some Facebook as well. A lot of clothing boutiques are focusing on a 15 to 22, 23-year-old range. Her ultimate goal is to focus on 25 and older. So we actually put a lot more time into Facebook, but we do some Instagram because that demographic does fit into the platform as well for that. She's not into Snapchat, she's not into TikTok because frankly that's that 18 to 25 and that's not who she wants to target. So she's not going to put her resources into it. So one of the biggest things to understand is really understanding the platform, what's the base of the platform, and who is your target market. Sometimes you may segment your market in multiple ways and put different messaging on different platforms. We have someone that's going to be starting with us for her boutique this summer, and what we're looking at doing is from a content standpoint, and it's paid advertising, that'll be further along in the summer session that we talk about it, but we're going to take specific pictures and write specific content gauged towards 18 to 25, 26 to 34, 35 to 40, and 45 plus, and looking at how those different pieces of content perform. So data is a very big thing that you can utilize with all these platforms. So does anyone have any questions that's not on social media yet or is there about what's the right platform for your audience? How does it work? Do I need to update anything? Any questions about platforms? Yes?
What about like Pinterest and blog posts?
So Pinterest can definitely work. We see Pinterest a lot in the advertising world of paid advertisement. We haven't had any clients that per se that we've utilized Pinterest as a mainstream platform, but depending on who your market is, it could be. If you are an interior designer, I think Pinterest could be a very viable platform for you. If you are Pepper's Pizzeria, Pinterest may not be the best platform. So just understanding who is that audience and who you can go after.
And then blogging YouTube, like are blogs still in or blogs even?
So blogs are very important, one, for your website, for search engine optimization, because the more content you put there, the higher you rank on your search engines. But it also provides you with a very viable and credible resource for content that you can post to your social outlets. Because at the end of the day, it's changed somewhat because social platforms have become so involved. But when social first came out, we were really trying to push people to a website. And a lot of times you still want to do that. So if you have a blog post and you simply copy that link and post that on Facebook or LinkedIn, whatever you can on Instagram, but we'll talk about that later. But on those platforms, it will direct people to your website. So they can then find additional information. They can figure out how to contact you. They can see testimonials. Some stuff that you can't put as much of that content onto a traditional social platform. So I definitely think blogs are definitely very important for you. Any other questions about platforms? Okay. So let's talk a bit about once you're understanding your target audience and what your platforms are, just making sure your platforms are complete. And sometimes that takes some time, but is your website up there? Is the proper email address up there? Are your hours up there? Do you have a proper description in terms of what you're doing? Also just the visuals, the profile image and the cover image on Facebook, for instance, and understanding what that means. So you have the profile image, which I would say 80% of businesses should be their logo or their logo mark should be there. There are unique instances where I do believe someone's image is proper. If you're a real estate agent, you are your brand. You can put your picture on there. But if you are the Homa Chamber, you're not going to see Nicole's picture as the profile image because they have a brand. They are the Homa Chamber. And then that big banner on the top, Facebook designed that for great imagery because they know that imagery sells. So what if capture an image that really describes your business? You can even put videos up there now. There are many unique ways that you can do that. One thing to consider is whenever you're creating that, is that those images scale differently on a mobile device or the app compared to how it may work on a desktop version. So you may want to cross-check to make sure when you're completing your profiles that the images work well on both a mobile and if you're using it on a desktop or laptop computer. Yes?
What if you have different locations? You have different profiles for a separate location in a different area.
So I've had clients do it both ways, and it's come down to a personal preference. I'll speak about LinkedIn and Facebook. Let's talk about Facebook first. They launched through their management system on the back end to where you can create locations. And then if you post it on the main page, it would disseminate that content through all the different locations. However, Facebook's technology, or the readings that we had from it, indicated that if a location page was active and someone from that location was posting, it wouldn't post all the content on that page. It's not very reliable. So we have a physicians group that has 7 locations across Louisiana, and we have it set up that way. because we had specific physicians who wanted to post specific content to only their area. So it made sense to do it that way, but we haven't been able to rely on Facebook saying that it's going to post to every single page. So it is a bit more work, but we will manually check every location. But the benefit of that was that we were allowed to give the physicians at those specific locations only administrative rights to those pages. So if they're posting something in Lafayette that doesn't apply to Homa, there's no confusion from the brand messaging at that point. Things like an Instagram, I don't think you would put multiple locations, you would just have one. LinkedIn doesn't necessarily offer location pages that I'm aware of yet, but they do allow you to build multiple pages within your main profile. So it really is what works best for you. We work with Pepper's Pizzeria. We have a Pepper's Pizzeria of Homa page, and we have a Pepper's Pizzeria of Thibodaux page. So it just really depends what works best for you in that scenario. Okay? Other questions? Okay. So making sure you have those great visuals on your profiles when they're completed. Also hours, reviews, whatnot. Just you want to give that professional image. If someone's going to go look at your profile, it represents who you are and what your business or your brand stands for. LinkedIn.
Sorry.
Yes.
In the interim, while some of us are maybe in construction and not necessarily operating,
Uh-huh.
and we don't have that information available, because we don't have those operations
Right.
available, is it harmful to just have that missing, or should we have that info on the page anyway?
So not operating in the sense of.
Like hours, phone number, maybe the phone's not even available for them to call because
Okay.
construction's going on, or the website's not available for them to book services and things like that. So we don't want a ghost website where they might not even, they find a dead link,
So I would see if you could definitely, a website I believe validates a company that you're real. So if you can at least have some type of page or message that's up on your website saying we're currently closed due to construction, to leave that link. You can remove your hours and remove your phone number, but I would definitely put in the about section we are temporarily closed for construction. That way there is a messaging there. You can also create a post that you can pin to the top of the page, specifically on Facebook. That way, if anyone scrolls down, that first post that they see identifies what the situation that's going on is. We did that for Pepper's Pizzeria. They were closed for 8 months, 9 months. The first post was pinned that we were closed, to stay tuned for more information. But we were constantly, to keep the page up and running, we were engaging with other local businesses and eateries in town and sharing their posts to still keep that community aspect going. So, but all those posts came below that one. That way if someone went to the page, and people still don't see it, I'll be honest with you, no matter how much information you put out there, someone's still going to message you and ask you, are you open? Unfortunately, we're not open today, but stay tuned for more information. You can recite those messages over and over again. So, yep. So does that help a bit? Okay. So on LinkedIn, again, it's a single profile. You can put specific information on there. And so there's some different platforms out there. We use one called Linktree. And Linktree allows you to put multiple links to link to different posts, hours, your website. It's a separate profile that you create, and then you put that link in the information section of your LinkedIn profile, and that way individuals can get access to that. LinkedIn, somewhat in the same way of Facebook, you can put your cover image and your profile image on there, and just keeping that updated as well. A whole other part of LinkedIn is getting your team involved and making sure that they have LinkedIn profiles and that they indicate that they work at your company. And when you put a post up, having them share it to their network, that's more of an organic strategy of getting your information out there, because we all have networks of people that we touch and we talk to in different ways.
I have a question.
Yes.
Would you prefer a Linktree, or are you considering Instagram took down some Linktree a couple months back? So would you consider people should still stick with the Linktree, or should they include a beacon?
So that's information to me, to be completely transparent with you. We have link trees on several of our profiles and we haven't had any issues with them. So whatever works best. Just in general, the idea of being able to put more links out there is what I think is most beneficial. So whatever works best for you, and if Beacon is one that's more reliable, I'd say absolutely. So it's just the ability to better have ease of access and user experience on there. Yes?
Is there any way you can put two
On a
Facebook or Instagram?
Instagram, I'm not aware of being able to put multiple locations. The Facebook is what we were talking about. It's very difficult, and if you're only at 2, it may be to do that. Now, there's also the option, and this gets into a bit more technical, but to install a different type of phone system where you can have one phone number, and when they call, you can press 1 to go to one location or 2 to go to the other location. So you have one number, but it can direct to different locations for you. It's a VoIP system that Jason, or if we have any other telecom providers, can probably assist you with or guide you on.
That'd be great.
So,
Thank you.
yes.
With doing the links, is it better to do a link or a QR code, or how is that interacting? or
QR code
connecting with each other?
in terms of what application.
Like, if you want somebody to go to your website, is it better to have them click on a link or to use a QR code to?
From an actual social profile,
Yes.
I would say a link,
Okay.
because I always look at QR codes as external facing. I've seen them posted on Facebook pages and LinkedIn pages and Instagram profiles, and it's a lot more difficult to try to scan it at that point. It's more an external, that someone, you would anticipate that they don't have a technology in front of them that they can access it, or it's ease of access that they can actually scan it. So when it's in their profile, they're already there. So you would want to be able to put a link for that. Say that again? Oh, okay.
You're on your phone, so you don't have the camera to show.
Correct.
to in it. That's
Correct.
So like, I'm calling, trying to call out Tyler, like on the back of his business cards, he has or a QR code.
Right.
So you scan it, and it gives you automatically
Right.
to his page.
So that works well.
Okay.
But I've seen people post the QR code on their Facebook page, and at that point you can't, because you're accessing it from the phone. If they're going to be accessing it from the phone or the web, the QR code's not effective at that point.
It adds a lot more steps to it. Too.
Yep.
You have to screenshot the QR
Okay.
code and then go back.
Yeah. And then there's options, like if you set up the link tree or the beacon, that you can link directly to that with your QR code. That way, if you want to put, here's our website, here's our Facebook, here's our LinkedIn, there's additional options such as that. And my wife's boutique, whenever it was Mardi Gras time, she had on her link tree just Mardi Gras. So anyone who wanted that, they could go directly to it. Or here's our COVID policy. So it allows you more content to better put it on there. Okay, no problem. Okay, so I'll move on a bit from complete your profiles unless y'all had any more information about or questions about profiles. Okay, so the next is follow other businesses, brands, and prospects. And some people may be like, why would I follow my competition? Well, that's where the best content is. Understanding what your competition is doing. I have a client who calls it R&D. It's not my favorite thing, but it's not research and development. It's rob and duplicate. And we tell him rob and duplicate is not quite how we operate, but we can look at them for some insight. So Facebook does have a feature where you can actually follow your competitors and see what they're doing. We actually, you'll see these guides that I printed out for you are nothing that I just brought off the top of my head. One of them is from Sprout Social, the other is from Hootsuite. Sprout Social is a technology platform that we utilize in-house to manage all of our social media profiles for our clients. Sprout actually allows us to, we plug in competitors of our clients, and we're able to see some metrics of their profiles. So if we have a restaurant, we may put in every other restaurant in town, and it's nothing that's diving into the back end, but it's just pulling public-facing information to know what their posts may have been for that week or month or whatever that period may be, how many likes, how many shares, what type of engagement they got on that post. What that allows us to do is not necessarily rob and duplicate, but understand what type of content performed well for that client. So even if you don't have access to a software like that, you can still say, look, these are my top 3 competitors that are really active on social. Let me take an hour once a week or once a month to go see what posts are doing really well for them and what type of content that is. Write it down and look for some trends. Looking at imagery. If it's a restaurant, it's like, oh, the food performed well, but when they put food with a person in it, it performed much better. Just understanding what type of content and what's working. You can get some inspiration and some ideas from them. Don't go take their pictures off of their profiles and put them on yours. I had another client try that one time. I said, that's not going to work. But you can definitely get some ideas from what they're doing. Now, also, look to aspire. Outside of your service area and where you operate, who is bigger and better, and like, that's who I want to be in 5 years. That's who I want to be in 10 years. So look to them. What are they doing? How are they operating? I went to my team one time, and we were doing a strategic planning session, and I said, who do we want to be in 10 years? And they threw some names out, and I'm talking about agencies that are international with 20 locations and 5,000 employees, and I'm like, we've got 3 people, we're in a shotgun house in Thibodaux, but we're gonna work to make that happen. But we follow them. We understand what they're doing, and we've modeled some of our materials, some of our website after them, because they've got 5,000 people. There's a lot of brain power that's going behind what they're doing. So look to some bigger entities and follow them as well. But that can help you with your content creation for your pages. So keep an eye on your mentions. People may tag you at times. They may mention you. It always helps. You may to go give them a like, just a thank you. It's that just personal engagement and telling them we appreciate you. So define your content strategy. Determining your goals and the best approach to content and hashtags. And hashtags are oftentimes a big question. How do they work? What are they for? Some people like them. Some people hate them. Some people use them way too much. But that's a personal opinion. Some people think that they work really well for them. But when we work in branding, we talk a lot about your brand voice and what does that mean. And the best way someone described it to me one time, I was at a conference and they said, if you were about to go on a date with the guy from Charmin fabric softener, what would you expect him to say or she to say or the character to say when you walked in there? And it's this big, fluffy, engaging individual, and you expect them to be soft and humble and excited to talk to and just cuddly. That's their brand voice. They've portrayed who they are through that mascot. Who do you want to be whenever you put content out there? And it's not an easy task to say that you can determine what is your why or who you are, but starting to consider, okay, when I'm going to put content out there, who do I want people to think I am? Or what is the mission of our company that people will understand? Whenever I use Peppers a lot. It's one of our oldest clients, and being in retail, we do a whole lot more social posting for them. A word we have embodied is enjoy. We want everyone who comes into the restaurant to enjoy themselves, enjoy the food, enjoy the camaraderie, enjoy it enough to come back. So it's on the front of our menus. Whenever we post, a lot of times we just use the word enjoy. Enjoy this pizza today for $6, and that's it. But it's not just $6 pizzas, it's enjoy this pizza. So it's just how do you message, how do you build your brand voice, and how do you build your content that goes out there. There's a ton of thoughts and conversations that can go on around content. I don't want to harp on that for too long because I think we're going to do that a bit later in the summer. But if y'all have any questions about content generation, scheduling, ideas, yes.
So, how do I say this? And we can put it in another meeting if we need, but do you have to, like for example, Instagram stories or Facebook stories, is it better to have your team on Facebook or Instagram, or is it better to have you?
I think it's finding the great balance. And so something we always talk about is humanizing the brand. I mentioned earlier you may have a picture of food, and you may have a picture of food that a person is holding, and you may see that a person holding it is you see much more engagement. People respond to people. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much we work on our brands or how much we spend on graphics and great animation and video, people make up businesses and tell their story. And not everyone's comfortable on camera, and so we understand that. So you may have a very shy employee, but they are just a rock star, and that may just be an image of them because that's how you can capture them, is they're going to stand still for 3 seconds to take an image, and they don't even want to see it, but everybody knows them, but they just don't want to be on camera. You may have someone that is great on camera, but I think it's mixing it up, but putting people in place. Now, as a business owner, I know that more people, knowing your business, more people know you. And people look to you. So we see that with my wife's boutique. I have watched the data. The girls that work on her team are amazing. And she gets recommendations and accolades about them all the time. But if Megan goes onto her social and we put a picture of her or a video from her, our engagement skyrockets. And it's just, they know her. And that's who she is. She's part of the brand that's been built there, and people engage with it because of that. But it doesn't mean the girls that we have on the team aren't engaging and shouldn't be a part of it, because you don't want it to also be all about me. I think approaching it as a team, is very important to your content strategy as well. Yes.
I kind of have something to piggyback on that. So I'm kind of trying to figure out that and the content side of it, of like you said, like people who, so we're an IT team. So
Okay.
my technicians, you can imagine, they don't want to be on camera.
Right.
But it's like trying to figure out a way to like, I mean, they are doing the thing.
Right.
So I don't mind being on camera, but I'm in the sales side. So
Right.
I can only show or display so much in content with me there. So trying to figure out,
So
to be creative with the content.
Right. So I was listening to a podcast earlier, and it was all about being comfortable with video, because video is the big trend in content, and people are oftentimes scared to be on video. And one of the things they mentioned, one, it's going to prioritize your content in social, so it is important. And two, it humanizes your brand, as we were just talking about. So, but they said so many people are afraid to be on camera, and it goes back to these primal traditions of ancient history of people and prey and everything else. And they had this whole backstory about why people don't want to be on camera. But do you believe those individuals are more comfortable having a conversation with you than just being direct on camera? So maybe set it up as somewhat of a podcast, and you set up an area in your office with 2 mics and 2 chairs, and you just put a camera on and talk to them and guide them through that conversation. And so, because I'm sure your clients have a ton of questions about IT. So pick a list of 12 questions and you answer one every other week, and you've got 6 months worth of content at that point. And you're the salesperson, so those clients are seeing you a lot more, so it brings you into it, but it's also bringing your team into it as well. And if they get stuck, you can get them unstuck. To where it's not just them and a camera and they feel so intimidated. They're just sitting there having a conversation.
Yeah, and one other question. So around like content, I want to get more shots of them physically doing work.
Mhm.
So how does that work? Because everything is on site at someone else's facility,
Right.
a car dealership or a law office. So how does it work with content when it's on someone else's premises? Do you usually like ask, is it okay? Do you have to show them the photo usually? Like how
You
does
can-
that conversation kind of
It depends the relationship you have with them. If you want to get ironclads, you can have some type of release that is signed, and you ask the property owner, the business owner, are you okay if we take images of them working on this? We won't show anything proprietary. And you can have a release that you want to sign that really makes it worthwhile. But I was
Or
vid-
do you grade out, do you blur out the background so you kind of still see stuff,
It just depends on that preference. Like we have clients in the construction industry, and in an industrial plant, if they see a cell phone go up, it's like vultures. You cannot take pictures. So the only images we can actually utilize are things from outside the gates for the marketing purposes, which makes it difficult. But we have some clients, like we were at a school yesterday, they're like, take all the pictures you want. Like the kids have signed releases so where they can be on camera and everything else, so it was okay. So it really just depends on that situation. If you just have guys plugging up some Cat 6 into a switch,
yeah.
you're probably okay. If you're showing like some proprietary software or code that they're working on that's specific to that business, I wouldn't see most business owners having a major issue, but it's definitely worthwhile having that conversation with them. And like I said, if you think it could come back to haunt you, it's never a bad idea to just have a quick Google search, find a waiver, or talk to your legal advisor of having just something that they could sign saying, hey, look, we love to take some pictures. Our company asked if it's okay with you if we can just sign this saying that we can utilize these images as part of our marketing strategy type of thing.
And oftentimes, it's beneficial for the companies. You work with them, like, we'll give you a shout out if you're able to let
Yeah.
us take a picture with
Yeah,
us.
because like one of them is a new car dealership, so it's
Yeah.
like we should get something,
Yeah.
B-roll or something while we're, doing the.
They would love to take pictures with you. They want to be everywhere out there,
Yeah.
and it's
And
looking.
then when I get you, I'm like, no, they're taking pictures yet. I'm like,
Yeah, and that's part of a content strategy that's more organic, is looking at partners. One of our clients we have several funeral homes, and so that's a very unique market to work with. And it's been a struggle at times. How do you come up with content for a funeral home. So part of the spring component was maintaining grave sites. And it was, how do you do that? Is how do you paint it? How do you develop a fresh floral arrangement? How do you get a silk floral arrangement? So just some ideas that way. So I was meeting with the team and I said, well, if we need to paint this, why don't we go partner with the local paint store and actually talk to them about it? So at that point, we're not just utilizing our audience, we're pulling in a completely different audience, and they may share it to their followers. So sometimes it's thinking strategically that way and how they'll cross-share that content for you.
Now, do you do a video or do you do like a Instagram?
It could be either way. So it could be, hey, we're going to take a picture with the funeral home owner and the paint store owner and put the top 5 things to look at whenever you're selecting paint. Or we could show up and say, hey, do you mind talking on, especially if it's a client or someone you're bringing in that's not comfortable in video, you don't want to push it. You can push your team a little bit more to like, hey, you really should get on video. You may not push a community partner.
Do you recommend more, if it's like a team-oriented thing, do you recommend more like videos on Instagram or like the posts, like the Instagram, what is it, story? Yeah. Like how do you determine, because if I'm watching a video that's 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, I see.
Yeah.
You know, so Instagram and Facebook, the stories are easier because you can
Right.
click through, but, or is it like a personal preference?
I think it's just really understanding your unique business. So I'll go back to my wife's store. Like with clothing, she's gonna, like quick outfits, they're just gonna post on the story because it's content that's not really super curated. It's just a very quick image that you wanna post. But if it's a more quality post, we're gonna spend some time on this. It's gonna go on the actual feed so that it stays there and people can reference it back. And I guess that's a way to look at it. If it's content you think your consumer base would like to reference back, definitely make it available on your feed. If it's just quick content to update something, it may just be more beneficial for a story. Yes.
Mr. Cody,
Yes.
for those bigger suggestion may be for people who have people in your businesses and your team members who don't want to speak on camera, you just have them doing the work. They don't have to say any words. You play some music that's trending at the time, and you put what they're doing. So, for example, if you have people in IT and you want to get more people who come back for IT, give people 3 simple things about IT that they can use, which is helpful to them. And you make, you know, you see the videos on Instagram or Reels where people just have those little boxes and they have the words, and then you use that. And that way you have the person who's working it, you're able to show what they're doing. Nobody has to speak, and you still get your content. So
Yep.
that's another way in which you can do it as well. And if you want to think about your story versus what you do on your videos, your stories need to be under 15, 20 minutes because no one's going to watch a story longer than that. And if you have a video longer than 30 seconds, then you're not going to put it on your story because no one's watching it after that point. So that's just, and it's the same thing for Instagram and on Facebook. No one's watching a story after the 15, 20-second video.
Yep. No, you're good. You're good. Great points.
As far as videos and like getting them to talk, you can do short AMAs, like Ask Me Anything. You can also ask them what got them into the industry, made them want to do it. You can ask them their favorite case they worked on, or things that they wish people knew about the industry. And do very, very short ones so that they don't have to sit there for too long. If they don't want to actually do anything on camera, you can make it take, it's just going to take you 1 minute. And then you'll have some of those to post for a long time and really milk it for the rest of the year.
Yep. Jason?
You want to talk about music? Which kind of reference, the fact you can't use it?
I can't. I mean, I can talk about specific music. You have to be careful in terms of copyrights and I mean, are you talking about copyright? Yeah, certain music that you put in the background, Facebook has intelligence in the back end. If it's copyright protected, they will cut your music off if it's something that's not provided and you can't utilize legally.
I represent hospice, so
Okay.
a hospice company. So when you talked about the funeral home earlier, how do you think outside the box? Because people hear hospice, they think, oh, you're 72 hours,
Right.
and it's really not. That's not really the case with hospice. So how do you
So,
come up with thinking a grave site?
Right.
Really, like that, something that you think about when you think of funeral homes.
right. So we looked at it from a brand awareness strategy versus It's more making sure that you are out there more frequently so that people think about you and you are what they see and what they know. So we've put out articles of how to deal with children with grief. How do you deal with the grief of a dog passing or a pet, because that's become extended family members, you know? But we've done one of the funeral homes. The building is over 100 years old. It's historic. So we did content about the building, and just the image had a ton of traction. So just it can be challenging. I won't lie to you, but
But just you saying those ideas, in my mind is, you know, going those ways, and I was surprised you said funeral.
yeah,
Because it is difficult to.
it was interesting to
I
get
mean,
started.
Like, it's like a Walmart trying to rebrand itself.
Right.
So everybody knows Walmart, but like, you know, with the funeral home.
But you're
Yeah.
in hospice, so your whole thing is what, care, right?
Right, which is what I was going with, quality of care,
So
but
you
quantity
just-
is no
So
longer an
you
option.
show people being taken care of,
Yeah.
or children being taken care of, you're in the business of care.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, all right, thank you
And
so much.
I'll come 1 second. But like I think that's a great point in care. But you could do a community outreach. Like one of the financial institutions, they would do a care and they would give gifts during Valentine's Day. So do you do a special care event where you're going to local businesses and just providing care to them in a different way, but it provides you content, it gets your name out there, and different types of, because to actually just promote hospice is going to be difficult.
Because you guys say, I mean, you said care, and the first thing that comes to my mind is quality of life and quantity of life
Yep.
versus quantity of life, you know? Because it's only like 6 months.
Yeah.
Every day.
Right.
But, okay, cool. Thank you guys.
You could do a Q&A about hospice where you're just putting informational graphics out there so people understand the difference. Or you could do an interview or a video to just say, one of the most common questions asked is this, and you just have one of your nurses or one of your leadership team answer that question.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Yep. I know Tyler had his hand raised, and then I'm just trying to, unless you want, you can go first. I'm just trying to jump around.
Just going back to like the beginning, you were saying about posting on Facebook, how often would you consider posting, just to say you're not overloaded?
Okay. That's a great question. And so that can vary based on industry and based on your business. So something like retail, every day is not overload. Something like we have a restaurant, we post once a week their specials, and we see an amazing return on that once a week for them. Some restaurants may post multiple times a week. We have an environmental education organization we work with, and when we came in, their staff really didn't like us because we told them that they were doing it wrong because they were oversharing and overposting sometimes 5 and 6 times a day. And their traction was just because the entire team had access to their profile and they would share everything that they want. And we said, that's wrong. And they said, no, it's not. People want to see our content. And we said, we shouldn't do it. We said, we've got data to support this. So it took 6 months, and we finally got it reined in to where we manage their social calendar, and they have to let us know if they want to post something. And we now go anywhere from 2, sometimes 3 times a week, and we've seen their engagement rates skyrocket. And so the data allowed us now, given that they're science-based, they believe us because we have data to put in front of them that you were over-posting and this was happening. So it just depends on, yes. But I'd be happy to sit after and talk to you about that, depending on your industry. Yes, sir.
I know you may talk about this in another session or later.
Okay.
Where do you get the data?
So Facebook has a backend. I mean, multiple LinkedIn, Facebook, they have backends that they utilize. We utilize the Sprout social platform to manage all of our platforms, so we pull all of our data from that platform. I do believe Sprout has a free version. I believe Hootsuite is another one that has a free version. And on most of those, you can connect your accounts and look. One allows you to schedule content, but it allows you to look at some data as well. And there may be some others out there. Those are just the 2 that we utilize.
Couple things too. So that's the next session also is gonna go more in depth with that, with the insights and analytics to social media. So yeah, there's gonna be more content generated from there. But also, I know Psalm was here with CASA, and when you were talking about featuring some of your workers with IT, maybe they have a social media campaign that's Meet at CASA, and that's just showing like everyday people who are volunteers for CASA, and I think that's a brilliant campaign. And
So I'll give you my personal opinion, and then I'll give you the opinion of the people who only do social work and social media work out there. I think videos are captivating, but after, you mentioned a 10 to 15 second video, after 5 or 6 seconds, it's got to be a really good video for me to want to watch it. And a lot of times, guess what? I'm looking at social media when I'm waiting for an appointment. I'm sitting in a restaurant. I'm having a coffee. And so I don't want the volume there. So I prefer, but I like to read blogs. I prefer an image and get me to the article that talks about it. I can't stand a news article that they only put the video on their site and they didn't transcribe that video that I can read it, because I want to know what happened in the news article, but I can't see it. The industry is saying that videos are the way to go, and it's because the platforms are wanting to push video, so their algorithms are prioritizing video in the feed. So anyone not aware with the Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, they have this code in the background called algorithms that just looks at your behaviors and it gauges how it places content on your feed based on that. But they are prioritizing video content to be higher up because that's what they want to push. Mark Zuckerberg, that owns Facebook and Instagram, has directed his staff to prioritize video. So they're focusing on that a lot. I like images.
And if you are someone who are diverse or black, take it out of your bio and take it out of your hashtag, because black, once you put the word black in, it brings it down.
Wait, what?
Just saying, like, so you fight against the algorithm anytime you post something. So make sure that you're very.
I'm sorry.
But
That just like blows my
they do some.
Mindful when you post certain things and how you post them.
Because like even if you mentioned Meet the Casa, I mean, is it just like wording or is it a picture or like I'm going?
There's AI or artificial intelligence in the background that analyzes different content. So for instance, my wife's store, she uses a point of sale platform that feeds into what's called Facebook Commerce. So when you can tap to shop on your Instagram feed or your Facebook feed, anything that she had that was fake crocodile print or camel colored that she put was kicked out of the system because they assumed it was real crocodile or we were trying to sell a camel or whatever it may be. It would not allow us to put it into the system.
You gotta really study.
It's just
Constantly changing.
trial and error, following blogs. Like I had no idea about it until we actually tried to publish certain products. Yeah.
I can tell you as far, oh, sorry. I can tell you as far as Instagram, for my business, I've only gotten about 6 posts on there so far after I made it. My images, I think the most likes I've gotten are 5 or so. The one reel I made, and I did put an audio over it, it's gotten 75 likes and 2,700 views. So like, and that's the one that.
They are performing well, and people are prioritizing that video content.
And going off of the algorithms too, that can either be your friend or your worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's something that's ever changing as social media progresses. They're constantly changing the way they do things on there. So one thing that may have worked yesterday may not work
Yep.
today. So it's one of those, it's a trial and error. I think you
Absolutely.
mentioned earlier.
Yep.
That's just something that's kind of like out of our control, really.
Yep.
Should you be posting the same content, or like you say you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, same content, and you post on one, post the same on all, or try not to do that? What is the preferred method?
That's a really good question.
LinkedIn gives you the option to when you post on LinkedIn, you can post it goes directly to Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
You have that option. I utilize it a lot because Twitter limits, so then they can go to the LinkedIn if they need. But
Right.
is that like the way to do things?
So from a small business mindset, a lot of times most companies share the same content because to try to curate different content for every platform is difficult, and it's very time consuming. So most people will just post the same content. Ideally, given each platform has a different type of audience, I would say you would post different content. So for instance, we have a client that's on Facebook and they're on LinkedIn, and they're in the food service industry. We've suggested that their content on Facebook is geared more towards their charitable contributions and their team and what's happening there, because that's what that page is being utilized for. And their LinkedIn is utilized more to talk about their actual product and what's happening, because that's more business centered. And the product is not really, it's not readily available to the individuals who we're engaging with on Facebook. So we're utilizing it for two different scenarios. We actually didn't even put the company on Facebook for its first year in business, because we use LinkedIn only, and now that it's ramped up, the charitable budget is there, we can do more community-based, we need to hire more team, we're utilizing it in that sense. We worked with an engineering firm at one time, and we told them that, you know, their Facebook was being utilized to keep up community awareness, to know that we're involved in the community, and here's what we're doing, and here's our people, because you're going to utilize it mostly for hiring. And then their LinkedIn is to highlight what they actually do to their colleagues in industry. Jason?
Adam kind of talked about Hootsuite earlier. So with Hootsuite, you can have 2 social accounts and you schedule 5 posts. And depending on what platform you're posting to, it'll let you know you have too many characters or this doesn't display properly. And so it does give you an opportunity to help manage it, and again, to do that same content in the different platforms. You just got to make sure you support it. That is supported, but it does give you an opportunity to like post at one time, having it go multiple places. And if you want to do more accounts or more schedules, you can schedule months out. You just have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And what's that word?
Hootsuite. 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 It's a social media management platform, and Sprout Social is another. Later? I've heard of Later. Yep. There's multiple out there. Those are just the 2 that we tend to utilize. So what Jason's saying too, like a unique, if you plan your content out, say for a month, you could essentially reverse your content schedules as well. So for Facebook, you post 1 through 5, you go in chronological order, and then for LinkedIn, you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you kind of post same content, but you're posting at different times throughout the month, if that helps. Yep. Yes.
What's your rule of thumb for how many people that have access to an account? Because I see that as an issue,
Right.
especially at a previous job. Everyone had access to the account. I feel like things just got really chaotic.
I think less is more. So a lot of the work we do is in branding, and so we have this phrase we call design by committee, which it's whenever you're designing a new identity system or logo for a company, and the entire board of directors needs to approve it. That's a whole lot of opinions to tell you so we usually say, can you appoint one person to be our point of contact? It doesn't mean the business owner shouldn't be on there as the top level admin, because they can kick anybody off. But, you know, having your marketing manager, maybe an intern or a support staff. But once you get after like 3 or 4, like, unless there's a unique situation, we haven't met many businesses that need more than 3 or 4 individuals on there, because it happens similar to that environmental client we mentioned. When you had 10 people and people were just posting, and then people don't realize that they're liking specific content. I had someone one time, a client call me and say, so-and-so liked this page, and it was a very political post, and their brand liked it, because someone didn't realize that they were engaging as that brand. So like, I've got 20 pages on my social media, so I am very cautious when I like or share anything on Facebook. So it's also the mindset, is that person going to be careful, because it's your brand, and you work very hard for that, and one misstep can take a whole lot of work to get it back.
So I know during COVID, and I know we're spiking up again, lives were very important on social media. Is that still the case now, or should businesses be implementing that?
I think it depends on your audience as well, on who likes or doesn't like a live. I also think it's to be mindful of the length of it. So as you were mentioning, the videos being 15 to 20 seconds, I think lives that are multiple hours long, people are not going to necessarily engage in it. But if it's something that's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you know, I think they can work. And it's like we said earlier, it's trial and error. So start a live series. Give it a couple months, try it out. If you're not seeing the traction from it, say, hey, that's not part of our strategy anymore. Very similar, you mentioned the reels are working fantastic for you, which is awesome. Keep doing reels. We may have another business that tries reels, and like, we don't get anything from reels, but our photos are just working really well. So there's data that supports different things. As I said, the algorithm can influence that data, but it's really just figuring out what works best for your business and your brand. But I think lives can work, but managing it well. Part of the video podcast I was listening to was saying, the first question people always have is, what lighting should I get and what camera should I get and what microphone? They said, people really don't care. As long as they can kind of see you and hear you, it's the content that they're really worried about. If you look too much like a newscast, that's not humanizing your brand. So sit on your back patio where the sun is facing you so you're lit well. Put your phone on a stand and talk to people, and they're going to interact with you much better. Say that again. His name is Michael. So there's a website, it's called the Social Media Examiner, and I follow them for all their social content, and he has a podcast that's out there. They actually just released, I believe, their 2022 State of Social Media report that they have. That's if you, the Social Media Examiner.
I don't know where I got it. Okay.
And I'll give you guys, I have cards up here if you want to grab cards. Feel free to email me with any questions after with things I'm mentioning I can hand off to you.
So, the chamber, we have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I think Instagram and Facebook is kind of our strongest platforms. Facebook probably the most.
Right.
But I really want to start integrating LinkedIn on there, but I don't want it to be the same content that we have from the other platforms. So I was thinking of relating it more towards like the commerce in the area, kind of like what we did with the 200-year bicentennial, where it highlights like tourism, medical, things of that sort. Would you say that would be a good kind of campaign to go on LinkedIn?
I think so. I think you could tie in the statistics of growth in the community, what's happening with employment numbers, how tourism benefits the local economy. I think you could also do more getting to know people and having articles or videos on LinkedIn that's interviewing someone that's talking about the local job market, or how are they dealing with hiring, because hiring has been such an issue. But looking at it, LinkedIn being more business operational, given that's a professional side, and Facebook and Instagram being more business social component.
And what are some ways that you can find out whether, I know it's going to go into the insights and analytics and things, but as far as content, where you should put your website as the first one or social media as your first one, how to tell that difference?
In terms of where? What do you mean?
Should you put equally the most importance of each one, or should you focus more on social media than creating content on your website, or is it?
Well, I think your website you definitely want to do an audit once or twice a year to make sure everything is relevant in there, and that's when that blog comes into play of keeping your content updated that you can cross-share across your platforms. I think if you could create one blog a month that can go on, or a news article on your website, that would be fantastic, and it gives you content to put across your platforms, and then address your additional needs that may not be worthy of an entire blog post that you can put on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, whatever platforms you may be there. Because blog posts, sometimes people will just put an image, and an image is great, but you have to realize that Google has these, they call bots, that crawl the sites. And if you just put an image, there is a way to put a small tag, but what Google can really see is the content you write below that image. So talking about what's happening in the image is important, because basically they cross-reference it to when someone types a question in a search engine like Bing or Google, where is this information available? And then they look at your actual location and pull websites in your area that are relevant to you. It's crazy what they know about us, y'all. We try to hide it, and they got us.
What do you think about embedding social media into this website?
The feeds?
What do you think about embedding social media into this website?
I guess it depends who or what the brand is. I don't think it works for everyone. I always hate answering Jason's questions because he knows this stuff too. So we do it for a couple clients. One, from a brand person and aesthetics, I don't like how their design clashes with the design of the brand a lot of times. There are some specific ways where you can pull in their feed and make it match your brand. But a lot of times to get the full experience of that content, I think it takes up way too much space. And then sometimes you may post something that's just not as relevant to the brand on social, but that then becomes just a content curation thing that I'm picking at someone for and not necessarily there. So I think it's unique to each situation and to really discuss with them if it makes sense for that, and then deciding if you're going to embed content, are you going to embed only one platform or embed multiple platforms? Because if you try to pull 3 or 4 platforms into your website, at that point, I think it's just going to take up way too much space. I'm also a proponent of less is more when you're looking at advertising. A lot of individuals want to put everything out there. It's understood in today's day and age that you should have social media. It's understood that in today's day and age that you have a Google My Business profile and that you have a phone number. So the only thing we usually ever put on a billboard or an advertisement, excuse me, is a website. Because that website should have links to your social, your phone number, and things like that. So, great conversation. This is why we don't prepare huge slides, because I know it's going to get to this point. Yes?
Is it cool to just keep your little follow links, like your Facebook icon and things like that in your signature, your email signature?
I think you can. I mean, that makes it easier to access. Sometimes some spam filters will filter out your emails if they have too many links in them, but if you don't see that as being a problem and people are still getting your emails, I don't see that being a major issue.
Did you say a Google My?
So it's called Google My Business. So if, I guess we could consider that social media in a sense. So you basically have a space on Google. So if you search for a business, a lot of times you'll see that business name, their phone number, their hours. You can claim all of that as yours and have a profile that you manage there that has your information with reviews.
Okay, so it says it's a shared business type.
Yes, and you can claim that, and that way, like, you can get an analytics report from it each month that says how many people clicked on your phone number, asked for directions, and things like that. So you do want to, if you don't have that claimed and it's not managed, you do want to look at the Google My Business profile that you have, because your hours are updated on there, and I mean, Google is the most popular platform, so it's important, and it's almost like a free mini website because you can upload some images of your business there. You can have different things. So if you don't have a full website, that is definitely where you want to start.
I have a question. How do you add an address to?
Add an address to Google. So is this like a new construction place that doesn't exist yet, or?
Our guests can pull up our salon in Thibodaux with home.
Okay. So you just have to,
Contact Google.
yes. There's a way that you can drop a pin and put add a business here. I don't know off the top of my head, but I've done it before.
Usually, like Google, whenever you do that, they're pretty speedy.
Yeah.
Getting it on the map.
Yep.
Okay.
And if there was a previous business there before, that's probably what's pinned there, and you just need to go to update it.
Okay,
Yes.
for sure. Thanks.
Okay. So I think we've talked a lot about everything on this checklist. I don't know if y'all have any additional questions. I do have one more, and it's just essential etiquette rules. If anybody wants a copy of this one to pass around, just some quick things of, we talked about finding your brand voice. So reading the room, saying the right things at the right time makes a difference. There was a time, I want to say it was after a mass shooting or something had happened, and all these companies had their content scheduled, and they didn't unschedule content, and a lot of content came out as very insensitive as to what was happening in the world. So just making sure, not just from that way, but who is your target audience? What are you saying? Are you putting out content that appeals to them? This says ditch the bot. So not completely, but at least when communicating directly with your audience. So there are these automatic bots that you can purchase and install that will communicate with people automatically. We all know that we've been to that point where we can tell that we're talking to a robot and nobody likes it. So unless you utilize it just to start a conversation and then you jump in or have a team member jump in to finish that conversation, we would say it's not the best in the world. Respond to humans fast. Too busy, you say delegate. Some of the data I was looking at was saying that people expect 52% of individuals expect a response within 1 hour on social media, and if it's a complaint, 72% expect a response within 1 hour. So just making sure you can respond to someone quickly. That goes back to your question of how many people do you allow on your profile or on your page. The difference is you can at least delegate certain roles within those individuals, and you may say your job is only to answer messages. Do not post any content on our page, and be very careful about liking and doing things like that. Be nice to your peers no matter what. You know, you've seen, if you're a big Twitter user, you can see it's Wendy's and Taco Bell, and they'll go back and forth, and it's really funny, and like it's fun competition. You know, don't bash your competition in public. That's never a good image for anyone. Go easy on the hashtags. Hashtags are cool, but sometimes you can put too many out there. I find that I use hashtags a whole lot more on Instagram than I do on Facebook. Everyone knows what a hashtag is. Any questions about hashtags? Okay. Just want to make sure. Don't mix business and pleasure. I mean, I think that's, no one's drama needs to be on your business profile. You know.
So I can't talk about my business on my business profile?
Well, unless your business relates to your business, I don't.
You telling me that man cheat on me, I can't post that on my business?
You should not. But if you tell a really good story, you'll probably get a lot of traction.
She did it, and then she gave everybody 7% off sale, but she made $1 million. She did.
Maybe so.
She said her fiance cheated on her. She gave everybody 70% off, and she made $1 million.
Oh my God.
It worked.
We'll put an asterisk next to that one for next time, and we'll say, if the shoe fits, maybe you can do it.
She sold out in 9 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
She did it a couple of times. That's why I thought you got like.
How much money is she making at 70% off, though?
She made over $1 million.
Profit? I'm nosy now. I'm like, is it profit that she made, or did she just had $1 million in revenue? Oh, I did read that article. I did.
I think Oprah featured her.
Really?
It was right after he cheated on her. I'm just saying, it worked.
Then you can do the 1-year anniversary.
She got engaged again yesterday, so a new man. Just saying, she gave us 75% off too.
Did she marry this new man just so he could cheat on her so she could make another content?
Tyler, you know, the new hire orientation this week, you were talking about milestones. I mean, that would be a milestone. You did a ribbon cutting up.
Yep. So just going back to follow with purpose, you know, I hate when I get people on Instagram that just follow me because they're trying to get their followers up. Follow with purpose. You know, follow people who you're interested in, or follow people that you want to engage with. They are bots that you can get, and they will just follow people. And I'm like, and then they'll go unfollow the same people once you like their page. And, you know, there's technology out there that's not very humanizing, and it's just people want to get their followership up. And the best way to do that is posting great content that people want to engage with and want to interact with and want to share. That's going to get you up quicker than anything else. Give credit. You know, if you need to utilize somebody else's article, that's fine. I mean, that's okay. You know, I'll follow Business Insider or Social Media Examiner and share that, but just give them credit. You never know, if you put some insight into it, they may call you to be on their podcast. They may share your content as well because they go and follow you. So you don't know where that can lead. We talked about this, don't overshare. You know, if you're sharing 20 times a day and that's not relevant to your industry, you know, that's not going to do well for you. Go easy on tone, bragging, complaining, venting. More times than not, it turns people off. Sometimes it might be good. Sometimes. So this is always a good one. Don't sell. You're not trying to sell on your profiles. You're just trying to create interaction. You're trying to talk to people. So build value in what you do versus just trying to push, and sell. Follow because you want to, not because you have to. And then just be interested, not interesting. So when you try to be interesting, you try to make it about yourself. So truly be interested in your product and what other people are doing. So.
This may be shown by ignorance of social media.
So YouTube's a great platform. There's a lot happening there. Some of the data I was looking at last week is actually putting YouTube up there with Facebook because so many people are there. So if it's part of your strategy, I think it can be a very useful tool. My biggest concern with YouTube sometimes is, especially in a local market, is getting people access to it. But if you deploy something like a great email strategy where you're emailing your existing client base, you can link to YouTube, but you can also build your channel and then share those videos on your Instagram through a link tree. You can share them on your Facebook. Because the one benefit of YouTube is that if you do produce high quality video, it's going to keep the quality, whereas Facebook and Instagram are going to downgrade that quality a lot just for easy access and mobile loading and things like that. But I think it can be a great asset. You can pull the videos to your website, so you can do a lot with it. And then if you're on a bigger scale, having those interactions with, how many times do you get in the hole on YouTube if you watch one video and there's a similar one, and next thing you know, it's an hour and a half later, so you can eventually start to get into some of those channels with that.
Podcasts are really,
Yep.
really changing the game, because they're going from not being behind the camera to in front of the camera when they come.
Yep. And to something similar you were saying earlier about your technicians, and I mentioned interviewing them, that interview, if it's recorded properly, can also be turned into a podcast as well for specific things. So sometimes you can record a video that you host on YouTube, that you share on LinkedIn and Facebook, and then just pull the audio from it and launch a podcast as well. So you're covering 4 platforms with one piece of content. And how many people are driving and they want to listen to something and you can't watch a video, and like I have Spotify. Today I just pulled up the Social Media Examiner. I had a drive and I listened to a 30-minute podcast. And, really, really, podcasts are much more accessible than they were in the past. And, the best thing for a podcast is a quality mic. That way the audio is good. And and there's very affordable ones out there that you can utilize. Say that again? Yeah.
A podcasting app is free, and they post to Spotify, they post all the major
Yeah.
platforms for you. And if you record on a phone, I think they give you an hour, and on the computer, they give you 30 minutes.
Okay. Yep. So it's been on my list. I met someone on vacation one time, and he had completely changed his traditional agency into only doing podcasts and training companies on how to do podcasts. And he actually said it was the most effective business development strategy they had ever deployed. Because who doesn't want to talk about themselves and their business? So you're not asking for a sales meeting at that point. You're asking them to come in so you can share with your network. They can then have the content to share with their network. And it's not coming off as them bragging because you're asking them to sit at your table. And you're prompting the questions to let them talk about themselves. And so once that happens, you can then follow up with, your pre-podcast conversation and post-podcast conversation becomes what you do. And it can really open some doors for you to maybe work with them. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. No, keep asking.
Any tips on how to gain followers on Facebook rather than just inviting people and like begging them
So
to find you and
So you can do a couple different things. Of course, there's always the paid strategy where you can pay the social profiles to do advertisements to help you that. Outside of that, there's always the giveaway model, but that tends to be utilized a lot. But it's creating an offer a lot of times that's just irresistible of like, what's your business? Can I ask? Okay. If it's, say, a free room, or do you partner with several other businesses in town to create a staycation? A restaurant, a massage place, a bar, and they get to stay in your best room in the hotel. And it's going to be a staycation in Homa. You're staying home, but so then this staycation package that you're sharing is going to utilize the followers of the restaurant, the massage therapist, and the bar, and yours when they share it, so they're going to see who you are. And then who doesn't love something free? People they have to share it to be entered to win. Yes.
See, that's something that, like in my world, how do you make something
That would be difficult in your world because
And I'm like, how can we boost engagement and boost that kind of stuff? Because the content is not very relevant unless you're basically a business owner or someone
Right.
interested in this type of thing. You know, we're not like,
And that's why I think something like LinkedIn is a very important platform for IT. I think Facebook is decently relevant because you have to think, you're going to have a lot of business owners who are mindlessly scrolling through Facebook at night as well, you know, and checking LinkedIn at their desk in the morning. But how do you address challenges? How do you talk about people? But do you give away a free technology audit for a business where they can come in and look and see where your technology's at, what are your goals, and audit what they have, and do they have the capacity for what they need? And I hate to always say give away, but what are things that you can do that can benefit a business and, you know, help build value in what service you offer that doesn't really cost you things? You're not giving away an install or equipment, but can a 30-minute consult to talk about what's needed in their business help you get there?
Buy ice cooler, tell the people they like the page, you're gonna do a raffle, and then they gonna get the ice cooler. They don't care about no IT, but they care about ice.
They do.
I just want
That's
that.
what I mean, that's my thing, is like trying to figure out what'll get the engagement, and like you said, it's gonna be relevant. 'Cause, I mean, I wouldn't care about raffling off some AirPods, you know?
Right.
Like, we have the money to do marketing, but I gotta figure out how to get the right people
And I
to
think,
engage, and you know, because I'm tinkering with just in the middle of, we wanna make sure we have the right content, the right people, but then also, for credibility purposes, we need to build up our sites.
right.
Because there has been nothing on them, you know, so for credibility purposes, I feel like people might check in on that and they're going, oh, there's not much going on in there, you know, so kind of,
Well, I think putting the quality content out there is definitely a first step because whenever they check into it, it's not so much them saying, oh, well, they only have 150 followers, I don't trust them, but saying they're active. And these are some great questions that they're addressing. And, you know, that's building your utmost credibility. I also think a lot of people focus on followers, and that can be important, but it could also not be important. You know, you may only have 500 followers, but that's all you need, and your business is thriving. You know, you may not need 25,000 followers. I've compared from my wife's store that we will look at women's clothers who have 50,000 followers and her store who has 5, and we get the same amount of engagement on an image as what they do. So sometimes that quantity is not necessarily going to help you drive more business, but getting the quality individuals that are truly interested in your business to like your pages and to interact with you. And like I said, I think the partnerships are an ideal way to do things. Like if you can talk to someone that like you may have them as a client or not have them, and you're cross-promoting and tagging and talking in that sense, their team may start sharing stuff. Because think about if you picked up a car dealership, or say you picked up a trucking company that has 30 employees that are on LinkedIn, and you share a podcast, or you share just an image with you and their owner. Not only is your team going to share it, and you make this a positive post, their team's going to share it as well. So you're then building into those networks more holistically, and I think that's just how to look at it, and not just all right, we're only at 25 followers, and I want to get 500 on LinkedIn within 6 months. Unless you're trying to go national, like I don't think that's as relevant as putting just quality content that people can relate to and that you can get across.
I was saying, have you applied for agriculture?
Yeah.
that's something we haven't tapped in much, like asking for the testimonial.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's just because I'm new kind of taking on this role, but no one else really wanted to ask, I guess, you know?
Right.
So I think that is one thing we
And that's easy social content. I mean, if
clients that
yeah.
have big names, so it's like,
if
you gotta ask them to do it.
and if you have their image and you can just put a sentence with their name on it as an image, that'll go far. And look, you may not get a ton of traction in terms of people liking and sharing it, but people visually seeing it's important. We've had clients that they have put videos out, and the only 6 people who have liked it have been myself and 5 people on their team. But the phones started ringing like crazy. So sometimes it's not necessarily tracking the data. It's also looking at your overall business operations. Are my efforts working? because people may not always engage on the social platform, but they will remember you from the content that you put out there. Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Cody.
Thank y'all.